I got fired from the first job and it was the best day of my life. It has a way of course correcting, and it also comes to the point of you saying, I'm not happy here, let me go and do what I need to do and just really go for it.
I've got to say thank you for the slap. We started from zero. We sort of had a cowboy attitude. So we work with leading startups, corporates and government organizations.
The coolest climate tech startups. In short, we tell their stories.
Well, once you start working in climate, there's no way you can work anywhere else.
A lot of breakdowns, burnouts, crashes. There's two parts of it: emails, calls, client meetings, dinners, all of the nice stuff. But then you also, sometimes when you're in a startup, you bootstrap so much that you out-bootstrap yourself. You really need to spend cash. Yeah, we met through Instagram. We slid into each other's DMs. Say yes to life, yes. Let's go.
So this is episode 5 of Escape 9 to 5. Escape 9 to 5 is my excuse to interview exciting people, interesting people who have a curious soul to make a dent in the universe, basically. My way to show other people there is a different way of living than 9 to 5. So today, I'm very excited because I have the two founders of Velvet Green, who are very important in the sustainability space because I see them everywhere in the most interesting events that I go. So this is Brendan and this is Kiran.
Hello, nice to meet you guys. Thank you for having us as well. It's an honor. I was just telling Lydia this is the first podcast we actually do, so bear with us on this one. I'm Brendan. I'm one of the co-founders of Velvet Green. We are a impact-driven media agency. So we work with leading startups, corporates and government organizations, all trying to make a change. So sustainability, impact, NGOs, that kind of stuff.
Hi everyone, my name is Kiran. I'm also co-founder of Velvet Green. Brendan pretty much covered the majority of the bits and bobs of what we do. The general basis is that we work with some of the biggest companies in the UK, everyone from governments to the coolest climate tech startups, the whole world encompassing of green tech and sustainability and climate. And in short, we tell their stories. We find the people and companies and organizations that are changing the world, and we enable them to get their story out. We're storytellers.
So speaking of story, I always start with 2 truths and a lie whenever I talk to people because that actually brings out a lot of stories. So 2 truths and a lie with a twist about your Escape 9 to 5 journey.
First, I've never thought I would work for a company. I ended up working for a company straight away, and a big one. I quit my first job partly because of family, partly because I really didn't want to work for someone. Yeah. So one of those is a lie.
Do you know? We should all guess.
Are you my co-founder? You know.
I think it's the first one.
It's the second one. I didn't get a job straight away out of a company. I sort of fell into a startup, a larger startup. So it was sort of Series C, Series D. So they were quite a corporate company. I always wanted to do something for myself. That is the truth. I never really knew what. And then a family situation forced me to leave my job. My grandma passed away. No, it's okay. I mean, this is life, right? Yeah. And that kind of made me change a lot of things. And then after 3 months of being in my job, which came with a few twists getting there, I decided to leave and then start a company. I think I'll keep at that because we'll go into more later. 2 truths, 1 lie, Mr. Kiran.
Oh, this is a big one. So many different stories to tell. Which trauma do I share? So many traumas. I think the educational system in the UK doesn't capture the majority of people that try and push in certain ways. If you're determined to get somewhere, the system actually doesn't recognize all of people's potentials, and you fall through a gap, and you fall such to a place where you're only met by people that don't understand you, and they tell you that you can't be what you want to, or they don't understand that how your brain works or how you learn things. There is a bunch of negativity, I think, within the educational system because there's not enough resources there. So I stand by the point that I think the UK is not equipped enough on the educational front.
So that's the truth.
Yeah.
Quite obvious, isn't it?
That one's an obvious truth.
You gotta lie here.
I've got to try and fit a lie in. This is a tough one, Lydia. So I got fired from the first job I ever had, and it was the best day of my life. Picture that's painted of what a corporate job and life is comes with different caveats of external looking success, but potential internal happiness.
So your 3 statements. One is you think the UK system doesn't equip people to however they want to achieve their life. And the second is you got fired from your job and that's the best day in your life. The third one is very philosophical.
Yeah.
And I would just say it's the third one.
It's more of actually a hybrid. And this is why this podcast is actually fantastic, because there's some people that actually really enjoy and thrive in a corporate environment. I think that everyone is told you have to go and have a company or this and that. I have a lot of close friends and, you know, relationships with people that genuinely love their corporate job, and it is their personality, it's their identity, it's who they hold in a conversation of who they, you know, you as unfortunate as people like to put a little hammer down on other people. Yeah. And sometimes you get these personas of people and people that actually have these job titles and roles, and it becomes everything to them. Yeah. That they use that to, as sad as it is, sometimes belittle other people because they're at that position. In a bit of a hybrid lie response, that for me, it's not the one, but I think for other people, it's their calling, right? Like, it's kind of like a tribe. You're going to get your healthcare, you're going to get everything. They're going to look after you, like. Yeah. Hybrid lie. If that makes sense. I'm sorry, it wasn't a proper lie.
Yeah, we're all honest people. It's very difficult to choose a lie, but I think this is the best conversation opener. It's also a great story finder. And also, I recognize what you just said, because this podcast is not to say one way or another is better, because everybody has their own way of finding who they are. It's just to show different stories, to show people that, oh, these are the truths of one way of life, and whether that fits me is a different, they need to think for themselves. So it leads to our first part is why you got fired, and you sort of captured it just now, but if we can go to a little bit more detail, why did you switch and how did you meet each other? Feels like I'm interviewing a couple.
We're basically married, which I think you have to be as a co-founder. Yes. All right, so the reason I had my lie is I studied politics at university and I did my degree. I thought I would go into the world of politics. When I was small, I always wanted to become a manager. When you're a little shit, you just want to be a manager. Yeah. But then I went to study politics and I really didn't want to go into politics. I thought people were too idealistic to achieve change. So I switched, and then in my third year, I started trying the entrepreneurial world. So I thought, okay, let's work for a startup. The best way to sort of enter that workplace. I know I didn't want to go for a big corporate. It just wasn't an option, let's say. For me personally, I don't think I would have been made for it either. I think my personality wouldn't quite fit. So after working in the startup world for a bit during my last year, I joined an accelerator program, which was for entrepreneurial talent. It's called the New Entrepreneurs Foundation. They select young entrepreneurs between 18 and 35 maybe. And instead of coming in with an idea, you came with talent, and then they helped you shape that through courses at London Business School, at UCL, internship in a company, essentially. You work for 1 year. Oh. So some of my friends worked at Bedfair and they were with the CEO as a right-hand person or entrepreneur in residence. And I sort of made a list of companies I want to work for. So it was Monzo, Cedars, and I think one other one. And in the end, I got a job at Cedars, which is equity crowdfunding platform. It's a startup, but I think it's much more traditional in that sense because it is finance related, right? Yeah. So it's a lot of people that used to be bankers or people that used to be lawyers or people that didn't want to go into finance in an investment bank, but wanted a finance job, but not in VC. I was there for 3 months in total. Like I said, I didn't last very long, you know. I gotta say it was a really good experience. Again, I came in very green. I did a few internships at startups. And when I mean internships, it's sort of a founder and a team. And then you do a little bit of stuff here and there for them. Yeah. It was good. I was all right. But I don't think I fitted in quite well. You know, also my mentality, how I approach problems. There were 60 at the time. It's quite a big company. Yeah. I joined that, but I don't think I was doing things quite like other people. I didn't have my list that I was working off. I didn't use the tools appropriately. It wasn't clicking for me. I found myself focusing more on my passion, which then became my business, than that. So in university, I spent a year in New Zealand studying abroad, and I got into photography. I got into it at 17. I got a camera. For my birthday, I wanted to become a YouTuber, you know, as all kids do these days. I want to do as well. Yes, no, she is a YouTuber now. You know,
you got the real thing.
That's it. We're looking at the camera right now. I had money for the first time that I was earning myself. I was investing all of that money in camera gear. And then when my grandmother passed, a lot of thoughts started happening. I knew this wasn't right for me. I wasn't happy. I don't think I knew how to express it. I think when you're young, you don't know what certain emotions mean. You know, I knew my daily life was making me happy, but I didn't know why in that sense. So I think that became a catalyst. Oh, someone passed away. There's a lot of change happening. I'm investing into all this camera stuff.
Yeah.
I'm part of this program that is sort of meant to accelerate my journey as an entrepreneur. So why don't I just risk it? I'm young and start a company in video.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about corporate video. I had never done a video gig for anyone. I had a bunch of friends in this program that had companies, and I asked them, you know, could I do a video for them, or I have this idea, and they said yes. I got my first clients through that, and I left. And started that, and that was now 6 years ago that I started my company properly. But through that journey of being a freelance videographer first and then creating a production company, we were going to a lot of, both of us, to photography meetups. So you would meet up with 50 photographers in London and then take a bunch of photos. And at that point of my career, I was doing shoots abroad. So I was going to Africa, to Kenya, to do some shoots. And Kiran was the only guy that I knew or that I met that was doing the same. So a friend introduced us on Instagram.
People from the internet.
If people from the internet.
It was less scary back then. It's a lot more scary now.
Now that wouldn't work. It was a little bubble. We met through that, and then Corona happened, and then we started the business together. We'll get into that properly later. I'll let Kiran do his journey. But yeah, we met through Instagram. We slid into each other's DMs, you could say, you know. And now I think that's 5 years ago, 4 years ago, something silly. And now we're here. Ups and downs, but no divorce yet. So
this is how it goes. My story is similar but different.
Yeah.
I started with computer science. It didn't work very well, so I swapped to computing. Just the modules, it was too challenging. It just wasn't the right one, but it was a big journey to get to the university in the first place. I failed all of my GCSEs and A-levels, had to get all these equivalents and basically the whole tumble dryer of the educational system. If you fail stuff in the UK, it's very hard to get back on the ladder or try again. You have to take a year out and then try again. And I think I was experiencing a lot of learning difficulties at the time, and it took a lot to get through the system, to finally get the equivalents. And I could only go to a university that would accept my equivalents. So it was a really big deal for me to get to university. And through that process, I discovered, but my real calling was photography. So I started my journey and I was like, okay, let's go and get this IT degree. But in the background of it, I was like, I really like the idea of photography. So I got a camera and I completely self-taught myself on YouTube. Everything that you could learn, how it works, how's the button, I call it the YouTube university, right? Learned everything from YouTube, different creators, how things work, how the camera works. And I was like, okay, shit, I want to actually do this more. So I do uni all day, and in the evenings I'd be like, shit, I want to get some clients, I want to try and make some money, but I was like, I have to go and shoot for free to get a portfolio. And this is the graph that people aren't willing to do now. You have to go and do a bunch of stuff for free. And you have to take a couple slaps in the face and understand that you need to have a portfolio to show what you're worth. You can't just go out and start charging. But that mentality today isn't there.
You've got to say thank you for the slaps.
Yeah, you have to say thank you. But back then, and it's still, in my opinion, still a tried and tested model that if you can have a portfolio and you can go and show someone your value, then you prove that you'll have some worth or bring something to the table, you can accelerate yourself. So at that time, I was like, I would go and shoot for all sorts of companies for free. I'd just knock on these big corporate stores and be like, I want to shoot this, I want to shoot that. And they'd be like, this kid's going to give us free photos, and they would let me shoot it. And around university of doing this around my actual schedule, I'd go out and I'd go with my camera and I shoot for absolutely nothing. And then I was like, someone said they'll pay me £5 an hour. And then I'll be like, oh my God, £5 an hour. Then it was £10 an hour and £20. And through all of that, I got the degree, got to the very end of it, still shooting in the background of all the weekends and after uni, everything going on, got the degree. And I was like, okay, well, I don't really like this too much, and got a job. I did have an accelerator program. It was a student mentorship program. And that kind of showed me the world of corporate, and I realized it wasn't for me, for where my brain was at and with what was going on. But I got my first real job at it was an internet service provider, but they lasted 2 months there and I got fired, and it was the best day of my life. The absolute best day of that. I used all of that cash into my camera gear. I bought like the lens I wanted, the camera I wanted, the body, the laptop, little tiny shit laptop I had as well. Still did the job. Brendan's seen it. It's horrid, but it's proof, right? Sometimes the way the universe works is that if you actually sometimes want to go for something, it has a way of course correcting. And it also comes to the point of you saying, I'm not happy here. Let me go and do what I need to do and just really go for it. Like, I wasn't getting paid anything to do photography, but it was just more in the sense of my calling there. And I was fortunate enough to, you know, work with some really cool individuals and agencies that took me all around the world, like all around America, shooting for rappers, celebrities. I got to shoot with big companies like Airbnb. And it's so many different wonderful things have happened since then. Of course, meeting Brendan and starting Velvet Green, that's my story in that sense. The internet is a very scary place today, but there are some wonderful things.
Opportunity is everywhere in the internet.
I think so too. So I'm also people from the internet.
Lydia reached out to us from the internet.
Yes, from the internet. But I think that social media, a lot of people are addicted to it, but you can use it as a creative avenue and then a way to connect with my friends and my followers. That's all you need. But I really love the stories that you tell about how you figure out what your calling is at such a young age, which to me is a blessing. About Velvet Green, why the name? And your business model, you kind of have already explained.
You know, you say it's a blessing to start things at a young age. I agree, but it's also the difficult journey. Like Kiran says, you start for free and then you start seeing value in yourself and your work. Others then see value, but to be honest, the value is still very much lower than what it should be. And it's a slower progression, and it's the hard school of life, I would say. And I think in that manner, COVID is sort of what triggered everything for us. We both had our companies in COVID. Obviously, we are an on-location business, right? Photo, you have to go to the client on location and meet them. So when the lockdown happened, pretty much both of us lost most of our business. For myself, most of my shoots didn't happen. I had one retainer through a crypto company called Luno, and my friend Harry, who was the content guy there, who's now doing amazing things, who believed in me, and I think he knew that that was my only way to survive, this retainer. I had that retainer. But as that happened, there's a lot of change in my life personally. I had a co-founder in the business, and then we stopped working together just as Corona hit as well. And then we sort of came to the realization that, all right, the only way to survive this is if we team up with other people. So there was a little consortium of us in the beginning, I think myself, my co-founder, and then we asked Kiran as well and a few others to join. And then slowly, like flies, everyone started dropping out for their own reasons, because again, COVID makes you prioritize yourself, right? Because you're alone with yourself. So everyone had to look out for themselves in terms of their job. And we sort of were the only ones that stuck and said, okay, we believe in content. We believe in what we're doing. Everyone else sort of went back to their own careers. We decided to join forces, join our portfolio, and start a company that was called Cruise Control. It was just a production company that we, Cruise Control, where we could target larger clients together. Then slowly, as as the restrictions, were lifted, we started working together in person. We started building that company. Half of working at the Hoxton Hotel in Shoreditch and paying £6 for coffee every day, we decided, why don't we put our money into an office space? By luck, we found X+Y, who's now a client of ours and a partner, and just fantastic people all around, who've been supporting us since the start. I could not recommend them enough, honestly. We joined their space in Whitechapel 2.5 years ago, I think in September of 2020. No, sorry, 2021, my bad, or 2022. Anyway, one of those. It's 2024 now, damn. We joined the space, and then after 3 months, we did a project for them. They saw what we were doing. They liked our stuff. And they are an impact-driven space, office provider, co-working space.
Co-working and office, so they pretty much do all different needs for your business. So if you want to co-work, it's really, really cool. Like, it's very different from any other co-working space. They do like events, or like they do massage, they do like painting, they do drinks.
It's like a nice WeWork, like much better. I shouldn't say that, but I think they would know what I mean. We got them as a client. Most businesses in there were impact-driven businesses. So you had a lot of consultancies. B-Lab UK is based in there. So the whole ethos of the space was green and sustainable. Always stayed very late at this space. We started later and stayed late when everything was empty. So we were there one evening and we said, you know what? We've now worked with a few consultancies plus X and Y. Why don't we switch this whole business and just work with green companies? The sector did not have good content. The marketing was not at all on par with all the fantastic solutions they had. Why don't we offer accessible content for this space? Yeah. And that's when Velvet Green was born. There's a story that led us to this conclusion, which is actually a funny story. We started working with an agency and they had some clients in oil and gas. Right. So this is the real flipping switch here. And they messaged us and said, look, we have a client who wants to do Breaks the World. And we weren't the most sustainable guys out there. I still think we're not activists. We believe in it. Yeah. But at that point, we were just sort of getting into this mentality, to be really honest with you. And as that sort of made us click, we had a few sustainable clients and we said, you know what, no way we're doing this. Let's start Velvet Green. Let's actually be sustainable.
And I think along to that as well, that all of these companies, all the people that are actually on the ground trying to make the biggest change to climate, sustainability, social impact, these are the people with the worst comms. These are the people with the worst video, the worst websites, the worst visuals, the social posts. No, but it's not also they don't have money. They don't prioritize their impact.
Scientists.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the engineers, the scientists, like especially the climate tech. A lot of those founders are, engineers or scientists. They don't know comms, PR, marketing. They know how to do science, right? But it's like a bit of a mismatch because the impact they create is fantastic, but no one actually will know or care unless it has a proper storytelling background to it or a proper image. Yeah. So that was one thing we saw in market capital there, that there is a need for it. There is a want for it. There needs to be more solutions to help those companies. It makes you feel good.
It's changed our whole life, our whole outlook on life, everything. Honestly, it's amazing.
It is. I always tell people, once you start working in climate, there's no way you can work anywhere else. I need to plug my own podcast. I have this like and subscribe. Bite-sized Climate Tech is my podcast. It's only 5 minutes.
And the biggest challenge for human race is what we are already used to, changing that.
It's always good to lead by example and be the change that you want to see in the world and explain why you do things the way that you do.
We're doing this because we want to make the world a better place. We know that we need to remove CO2. We need to stop emitting so much of it. And we have technology that can do this efficiently and economically.
It's all these developments that kind of lead up to big system solutions like this that are helping change the world.
I only interview scientists and engineers who are creating real change in the world. What I find is when I was working in investment banking, we need to help them, connect them with investors, right? But they are scientists. They're the most humble people on earth. They always start, I'm not pretty sure, the percentage, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, get to the point. You have the best technology. And then when they talk about the technology, they always talk about it in a very, very complicated way, which sometimes you lost people's attention, you lost them forever. So my podcast is only 5 minutes. You explain one concept only, no politics, nothing, no regulation. Please only explain to me what is carbon removal, what is hydrogen, what is hydrogen fuel cell in 2 ways. It's just the funniest thing ever is I usually go to them and say, do you have a way to explain to an 8-year-old? They say yes. And then when I get to that point, they just repeat whatever they just said for the second time, slowly. And then I was like, look, let's try again. I love doing this is I get to understand, because you need to understand the essence of the technology. So to come up with the storytelling part for an 8-year-old to understand. And for me, I feel like I'm so much smarter. It's very selfish, the same way I want to do these kind of podcasts. But yeah, we have the same goal. Let's talk back to about Velvet Green. Each of you give me one story, one of the funniest moments and one of the hardest moments.
I'm going to say a different story. It doesn't relate to any of our clients. That was one of the cool projects we did together before we started Velvet Green, is we were at the Hoxton Hotel, again, in the lobby in Shoreditch, like the startup capital of East London. And we had our cameras on the table, right? Yeah. And then this random lady comes up to us and she's like, oh, those are nice cameras. My husband's a photographer, but he's not as big as you. These cameras look really professional. Why don't you come to his studio? It's right here in Shoreditch. And we're like, why say yes to life? Yes. Let's go. So we go across the Hoxton Hotel is a nice area in Old Street, So we go across the Hoxton Hotel, knock on a door. And then this guy greets us, and it turns out he is a nature photographer for all the top magazines, Nat Geo, BBC, works with Attenborough, everything. And he has a studio in London, and he walks us through. He's like, oh yeah, I had a live wolf in here to do portrait photography of a wolf. I had birds, I have everything. He's a conservationist. So his thing is taking pictures of animals so to make them look human. So it's like a portrait of a wolf to show the personality behind the animal, so they're caring about it more than if you would just see an animal. You know, it's a human connection. So he goes to us, I like you guys. I have a shoot where I'm going to have 9 live flamingos in a barn, and I'm going to take a photo with the reflection of the 9 flamingos on water. So then a few weeks later, we go down in Kiran's old car, I remember this, with a videographer that we met who's never seen a flamingo in his life. He was so excited, this kid, to see a flamingo. And we go to this really posh estate where they have rare exotic birds all under conservation, and they walk the flamingos in. If one of them fell, it would have died. If it breaks its leg, it died. So you had to be uber careful for the flamingo not to make a movement. Yeah. And then you put all of the flamingos on this fake pond they built, and he took a beautiful picture for his photo book. Yeah. So I think that's the funniest thing, because when in your life would you go into a barn in South London, South UK, with 9 flamingos with a random conservationist photographer you met in the Hoxton Hotel? The hardest moment, I would say, was last year. So we've been officially going since 2 years. We registered in 25th of February 2022. We had no connections in the climate industry. We started from zero. The first clients we had were the ones we found. We didn't really know many people. We sort of had a cowboy attitude. Climate cowboys is what we like to say. Yeah, we have that domain as well. There's something coming there. Just stay tuned. First year was quite slow. It was getting into business. We never cared about revenue or profit in the first 2 years at all. We only cared about starting to work with cool companies. And the flip kind of switched last July, when we started sponsoring early last year an event series called London Climate Connection as well. We met you through their Innovate UK series, which we cover as well. And through that, love Juliet. Shout out to Juliet and Climate Connection. Through that, we started getting more exposure, really started to kick off things. We really started to grow a lot faster than anticipated. We always wanted to, but it really happened. But that came at a really big mental cost. So I think a lot of breakdowns, burnouts, crashes, us having to take days off, weeks off, because our business is there's 2 parts of it, right? You have the normal part of running a business, emails, calls, client meetings, dinners, all of the nice stuff. But then you also work on the business, so we are at shoots. So imagine you're on a shoot from 6 a.m. till 5 p.m. And then on top of that, you have the whole other business day to do the emails, because we have to be there. So it's sort of doing 2 jobs at once, whilst we also have our own companies, which we lived off until Velvet Green made money. So it's sort of 3 full-time jobs. And that's with a big increase in business.
Shout out the therapist.
Honestly. And that led to... That was tough. I'm going to let Kiran say, because he has a lot with the therapy, I think.
Okay, so let me just be very clear. This was not a happy story, but it is now a hilarious story.
Every bad time.
Right.
It's either a good story or a good time.
We love bad times.
I have a lot of good stories.
This was a scary story that turned into a very funny story. We do try in every single capacity in our business, by God help me, to be as sustainable as we can. Now, logistics is a big part of our shooting. Moving from A to B with the shitload of stuff that we have, we sometimes come with like 9 suitcases. I have to like package our stuff into a suitcase, because if it's in a different size box, the Uber driver will be like, I'm not taking that. But the suitcase he understands and recognizes as a regular format of bag. Now, we had a production shoot that was quite far out of London, and we decided that, the best way to get there was the train. And
to Manchester.
Yes, we had to go take the train with a big bunch of bags up to visit the client shoot that was outside of London. It was me and Brendan with like 9 or 10 bags or something like that. We got a train, and I think we got on at the wrong door of where we were supposed to be and sat down in the wrong seats. So we got all the bags on, and then it comes to like, what are you doing in my seat? Get out. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm in my seat. And they're like, no, you're in the completely wrong part of the train, wrong carriage. So I'm like, okay, we've got to move all of these bags, I think forward or backwards on the train.
7 bags.
7 bags, and come back, forward, back, forward, back. We get off the train. We realised that we've left a bag with £15,000 worth of cameras.
Rented cameras, not our own cameras.
Yes, rented cameras on a train. And in the moment, you're like, oh my God, oh my gosh. What do we do? Fortunately, there was all sorts of things that then took place. I called the British Transport Police.
Crisis center happened.
Crisis. We went into the control room, but I think in America they call it the war room or wherever. Where Obama goes in, they're like, we've got a situation. Cobra meeting. That's it, Cobra meeting. So we think, oh my God, what do we do? Where's this train going? By God's grace, that train comes from Manchester and goes back to London. We're like, hopefully the British public haven't touched it. Everything's in there, all fine. I call my dad. I call like my best friends. Brendan calls everyone he knows. I call the British Transport Police because they're like, the first thing they say to me is like, yeah, you know, you should be more careful with your stuff. That's what they say to me. They're like, they don't be like, yeah, we're going to help you. We call the train provider. The train provider says someone on the train will call you. Also, you should be more careful with your stuff. Like, I don't want to hear this now. We assemble a Marvel team of our friends and family, special operations to get back. What station was it, Brendan?
It was Houston. It was his dad who was having an emotional breakdown about this. It was my best friend too. She's very German. She comes, bam, you know, action orientated. His friend from Paris. He just came from Paris for one day. Leaves his business dinner. He says, you know what? These cameras are important. They come, and somehow the bags are there. And somehow I was in my stupidness smart enough to bring 2 extra cameras with me from London, just in case these 2 that we rented didn't work. So we still did our shoot. It was for a new drug to cure some cancer. So it was actually a really cool shoot as well, which I'm really glad we did. But yeah, we almost lost 15 grand of camera gear.
The train, it's there.
No, not us, our friends. We were in the hotel, you know, like in the corner like this, you know.
Like, oh my God, oh my God.
This is when revenue starts to go up for the first time, but obviously those 15 grand would have been gone like that, and then suddenly not a great end to the year anymore.
It wasn't even the cash. We could afford to lose it. It was our relationships, it was our worry, and by God's grace, it was we special operations down there. My dad turns up. Rosa, Brendan's best friend. We've got my best friend. I call my best friend. I was like, this is what's happening. He ran from Camden. He'd talk to the people at the station. My dad and Rosa, they spoke and they're like, train's coming. Can we get on? My friend just like ran onto the train, like went through the barriers. Like, I'm going to go and get this bag for you. And by the miracle it was, a big laughing story now. This is why thankfully now we have an electric car as well. Big shout out Volkswagen ID3. Good range. You have to laugh at these things. You're like, what the fuck were we doing? Moving 9 bags on a train to go and do this production. It was so
unnecessary as well. We could have got a car. But we're idiots. You know, sometimes when you're in a startup, you bootstrap so much that you out-bootstrap yourself. You really need to spend cash. It's the biggest lesson we learned. Spend where you can, and money shouldn't be as precious sometimes. Money is really important, and not wasting money is super important. But time and mental peace. We now have extra people at shoots, even though it means slightly less revenue, so that Kiran and I can breathe. We don't have to have the breakdowns like we did last year. Now we have a bit more time to think, and it's actually improved our quality. We have new clients. Growth has been good because of it, just because we started investing. We went the hard way by being young and sort of learning everything on the go. Maybe if you had a corporate job like yourself for a while, you would probably know these things a little bit more, you know? You still have your favorite memory to go.
So that was our funny memory.
That's the funny
that was that was the funny memory.
He has therapist.
No. We're getting help, don't worry. That was the funny memory. Sadder note, actually, the hardest part for us was we had an editor that worked for us, and he was the most talented person I've ever met, to be honest. He worked off-site, quit his job to work for us. He worked in a call center, and he said, you know what? I love what you guys do.
He's crazy motherfucker. He just said, you know, this is my dream, fuck this. Let me figure this out with you guys. And he did.
He was all in on, like, when we told him the vision of what we want to do, he elevated our production to new heights. Unfortunately, he got a rare form of cancer.